What's your opinion on creepers? Are they a menace to society that should be locked up to keep decent folk safe? Some even think they should be hunted down and eradicated like vermin, while other, perhaps more enlightened people feel that they are the victims of their circumstances and can be rehabilitated. Well, for many years, public opinion was very much that they should be locked away forever. This 19th century creeper jail is testament to that. Old Bodmin Moor County Jail for Creepers was built nearly 200 years ago to keep what was seen as a rampant creeper menace off the streets. Even within our lifetimes, feelings ran very strong about the need to maintain public safety. These words from an interview in 1975.
Night after night they would gather. It was a gang culture. Fights were common, very common. If I had my way, they would lock them up and throw away the key.
Some more recent views show how modern understanding has changed opinions. These are Charlie and Ken, who knew a young creeper called Eric when they were growing up.
I'm not saying Eric was perfect, he was one of us, though. You could tell that something was boiling up under the surface and that he would maybe blow in a big way one day. Never did it while we knew him, though. I feel sorry for what's happened to him.
And here is a neighbour of Kevin, who was constantly in trouble with the law in his teens.
I watched him since he was a nipper. Dead cute he was, but he had such a short fuse. One minute he'd be playing with the other kids, the next kaboom.
This jail is a museum these days, so we can walk around it and try to imagine what it was like with 150 inmates. This is the gatehouse set into the walls. From here they controlled all comings and goings, and would open and close the huge doors in the wall to allow vehicles through. Out the back here is the exercise yard. It's very bare. You can't imagine the inmates had very much pleasure going out here. A brief glimpse of the sky, a bit of fresh air, all the time being scrutinised by the warders up in the lookout tower. Over this side is the reception block. Here new arrivals would hand over all of their possessions, be searched and interviewed, and emerge in their prison overalls. By contrast, it was also the place you would visit on your last day, having done your time to get your belongings back and prepare to re-enter society. Round the back is an office building. Taking care of 150 prisoners takes a lot of organising. The lookout tower was the most hated and feared building. It contained the armoury, dishing out weapons to the guards in the event of a riot or disturbance. Worst of all, it was the place where executions were carried out. These were rare at this jail, but, typically for the time, they were public hangings from this scaffold here. Moving on to the main prison accommodation block, the largest building in the prison, with double thickness stone walls and heavy iron doors, whose clang shut must have stayed in the dreams of many ex-convicts for years afterwards. The cells are arranged along 3 levels, on both sides of this balcony. There is a door, a bed, a viewing window, and lights that never turn off. Some are double cells with bunk beds. Prisoners were all fed in these 2 canteen rooms at the end of the building. A warden stood guard over each group as they were eating. Food was brought up from the kitchens, in which the more trustworthy prisoners were allowed to work. Through here, the bath house. Groups of prisoners would be marched through to perform their daily ablutions. All of the showers could be controlled by the wardens from these taps here. Inmates would leave their overalls and their few permitted possessions on these pegs here. Prisoners were kept busy. Each had a job. Some in the kitchen, as we have seen. Others may have worked in the laundry, scrubbing and boiling sheets and overalls, which were then hung up to dry on these racks. Probably the largest workplace was this mailbag sewing room. It would have got very noisy and hot when 40 or 50 inmates were using these sewing machines and tools. After a few decades, a couple of classrooms were opened so inmates could begin to learn their basic lessons that they maybe skipped as a child, or perhaps they could even learn a new trade for when they were released. This was certainly not part of the original plan for the inmates, and perhaps shows how prison life was a little brighter in the late 19th century than it had been at the start. As we leave, we could consider that, although this jail is now a piece of history preserved as a museum, creepers throughout the country are still locked away in modern jails and rehabilitation centres. There has been an undoubted improvement in prison conditions in 185 years, but perhaps we still have a little way to go before we completely understand these sometimes highly disturbed individuals and treat them appropriately.
I'm safe now, I suppose. I did my time and came out with a certificate and a new set of skills. But it is hard, you know, fitting back into society. On one level or another, I'll always be a creeper.